wield the Lotus 49, you certainly need a little bravery. So the community is not one to shy away from crazier ideas. And one of those ideas they've latched onto is starting off the season at Monza Combined. This now established tradition should bring us no shortage of action as we get ready to watch round one of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legend Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and joining me in the booth is IMSA driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes is our director Robert O'Brien, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. If you're not familiar with Monza's combined layout, let's take a quick dip into a lesson about the place with our track guide. Welcome to Monza. This track has a major place in racing history, not just for the legendary races, names, and cars that have been here, but because it was the third purpose-built car racing circuit in the world. It's often discussed and reverenced among fans, and especially by Italians who have nicknamed it the Temple of Speed. In fact, the Ferrari fans here are so famous for their devotion that they have been dubbed the Tifosi and never fail to show up in droves. While the real world offers only 3 feasible layouts to race on due to safety, in iRacing, the inclusion of the oval and the lack of safety concerns gives it a stunning 9 versions drivers can choose from. The modern GP layout is of course the most well-known, with its long history of hosting the Italian Grand Prix. But the oval and combined circuits allow those who thirst for more speed to satiate that craving with its insanely high banking. Indeed, incredible velocities are a staple of just about every version you can race here. Draft battles are not uncommon, no matter which car you're racing. But the inclusion of the chicanes makes using an outbraking maneuver a much more tricky way of overtaking. The circuit is notorious for drivers getting tangled up with each other while running side by side in these slow and cumbersome corners. In fact, one of the greatest dangers for drivers is the first few laps when the field is still clumped together and attempting to navigate them 2 and 3 wide. While there are other modern circuits with high-speed straights, the fact that Monza sits inside the Royal Park just north of Milan and is still tightly lined with trees heightens the sense of speed here. All in all, Monza is unmatched in its history, thrills, and great racing. Its significance in motorsports history and culture is sure to be unchallenged for years. Exciting one, but one thing that certainly will be true about this place is that the speeds will be high, Joey.
Incredibly high. You see, we're racing the combined layout here. That means turn 1 is going to be that gentle banked turn all the way down to the Lesmos. No chicanes on the menu today. I guess you could consider Ascari a little bit of a chicane, but that is how the racetrack is shaped. And something else to note, it is a little narrow. The bumps when you transition between the 2 circuits are quite large, so don't be surprised if we see 4 wheels in the air on some of those transition points. And also, just got to be remembering that if you're trying to make a pass on one of those bumpy areas, try not to be turning the car too much when you go over that. You can lose control quite easily here.
Yeah, there's going to be a few drivers getting airborne throughout the course of it, no doubt. It'll be wild to see. But let's take a look at last season's championship and how that wound up after all was said and done. Seb Tixier takes his 2nd championship in a row and just basically ran his own race. He didn't really try for it necessarily. He was trying to take as many wins as he could, and it came to him in the end. Ove Trangrade was behind with Togo Hisada, slipping to 3rd at the end of the season, a full win back. Meanwhile, Ben Zoko and John Olsen separated by 2 points in the end for that 4th place, and only 2 more back to Jorge Nieva. They were certainly in a tussle all the way to the last round of the season, but it all resets now. Before we get to this season, let's talk about the F2 standings as well, Joey.
I mean, you want to talk about a packed championship this past season. Robert Plumley took the crown, but look at this. There's been 3 battles within the top 10 that are only separated by 1 point. That was 2nd and 3rd. Then you got to jump back a little bit between 5th and 6th. And then one more time, 8th and 9th, even tied in that championship. So I can't wait to see what F2 brings us this season. If it's anything like last, it's going to be tight battles throughout the entire time.
Absolutely. And of course, a few drivers might graduate as well. So maybe that will shake it up. But over in the Cup of Nations, Singapore winds up taking it with up at the top, Sebastian Tixier contributing most of those points. The United States winding up 2nd, and Spain in third. Norway, with Ove Trangrade often being the one contributing there, was all the way down in fourth, about 3 points behind Spain in the end. Look at that between Japan and United Kingdom, though. Only 3 points between them when all was said and done. And then, of course, Finland, Germany, Australia, and Denmark rounding things out. Real quick, why don't you introduce our audience as to what the drivers are up against, Joey?
It is the first round of the season out here, so welcome all to Monza. 15 laps at the combined circuit. It is an open setup here at the Lotus 49 series. However, join the community forums. They love to share everything, have all the competitors up to speed. No spare car, so any damage that you have on the racetrack, you got to come down and get it fixed, and drive through penalty at 17x with a disqualification at 25. Like the usual, Joe, I don't think those incident limits are going to play a part here. It's going to be more the damage with the high speeds.
Absolutely, and qualifying is going to be interesting here. Highest driver up right now is Dario Frattini. What a name, as he's going to be the first to hopefully be able to set a time, but it takes about 2.5 minutes. So anybody who took off a little bit late probably won't be able to come around to try and get that second lap in. So you really have to hustle. And it's also very hot out there today, so it's going to make it extra slippery, as Dario is demonstrating there, coming off of the first Lesmo. And the second one, definitely a lot of counter steering I'm seeing.
The other thing we got to consider, too, is that if you don't get off of the start, like you mentioned, you don't get the lap in, but if you dip a tire and get a 1X on one of these laps, you got to make it all the way back around to start another one. So you're right, Joe, this first lap pretty crucial to at least throw in a banker.
And while the drivers do have the ability to pass somewhat easily in this series, starting from the back, if you're a front runner, not likely you're going to be seeing a win unless you have something phenomenal happen. But Dario comes up to the Parabolica. Let's see what he can put in for the first time lap. There was a few cases I saw where he was very close to the edges of the track. Oh, right there. That's a good example as he nearly goes over the white line. He'll cross, and it does count. It's a 2:21.5. Let's see what everybody else puts down.
And looking at timing and scoring, he's got about 30 seconds in spare. So what we were talking about, getting going, yeah, if you didn't get going within the first 30 seconds, you might be in trouble not to get that second lap.
I'm checking to see how far back everybody is. There's probably going to be a few that only get that one in. Ove Trangrade's in second, but only temporarily. Togo Hisada, who we know is being very good on the ovals, has put himself on the top. So I wonder if he's got a few secrets that the others haven't figured out. He's got half a second over the others.
Wow, look at that gap that you are mentioning, half a second. Togo Hisada, he's got some secret sauce inside that number 4.
All right, so anybody else? Let's see. Javier Mascara has not set one. Terry Traumahauser, Andrew Ang, Don Stanford, Caleb Winter, and Pablo Paris. So there are a few that maybe could come back across here on that first lap and get up there, but I'm not seeing any of the really major players. So it's up to that second lap for most of our drivers as Hisada flies down the usual pit straight, but is now the exit of the oval. Dario Frattini is definitely not going to have this second lap count, as that is fully off the course and he is done.
You got to carry a tremendous amount of entry speed throughout this track, and I think Dario was just trying to push it to the absolute limit. He's currently provisionally second, just trying to make up the giant half a second margin to Togo Hisada, which we're watching here go through the first of the Lesmo. He looks smooth, calm, just kind of on a cruise right now.
Yeah, and we've kind of seen that from him a lot as he takes a lot of the exit there, the second Lesmo. Again, he has quite a margin over Frattini still, who we know is not going to improve. Ove Trangrade looks like he has abandoned his second lap. And then Jorge Nieva is coming around not too far behind Togo Hisada. In fact, pretty much at the exact same spot. So this will be immediate as to whether or not he can top him on this one. Jorge is currently sitting in the 4th position. Here's John Olsen, who is in 5th as well. And his second lap is slower, so he's not going to improve.
I'm looking at Xavier Sanchez to see where he jumps up. Oh, look at this. Nice lap from Xavier here. Jumps him up into the third position. And you see Togo Hisada coming around the final turn. A little bit of counter steer. Not showing that he's going to be a little bit faster. Yeah, just a little bit slower than his first lap.
Nieva does improve, but he bumps himself back up to fourth after being demoted by Sanchez. And who else do we have close to finishing out a lap? It looks like that might be everybody done at this stage because we are down to 0. So with that, our results are set, and Togo Hisada is on the pole. Dario Frattini starts second, and Xavier Sanchez third. Jorge Nieva will be on the outside of that second row. Ove Trangerade starts P5 with John Olsen next to him. Then it's Glenn Becker in seventh, followed by Ben Zocco. In row 5 sees Marco Salgado and Bjorn Ackerman.
And we have David Rossi with Robert Plumley lined up in row 6, Matthew Maudsley 13th, Gary Ho 14th, Paul Foster with the top 15, Eduard Jaramillo there in 16th, Matt Wright 17th, Michael Grissinger, Jan Steffen, and Neil Kemp in the top 20.
Timothy Vanderberg will start 21st, followed by Jonathan Jordan in 22nd, Shady Ahmad, P23. Then it's Steve Morris in 24th, followed by Andrew Ang, 25th, and Terry Traumhauser in 26th. Robert Abroda starts in the next one. Then you've got Andre Bruno, 28th, Derek Matthews, P29, and Eli Ornberg in 30th.
In row 16, we have Don Stanford with Javier Mascara, then Jason Clapper with Kurt Clapper, and starting from the back, Akiri Shimatori, Caleb Winter, Pablo Perez, Robert Reynolds, and Daniel Bodarek are the 39 cars.
All right, as the drivers getting ready to finish gridding up here, the temperatures have not changed very much. Waiting on a few to put themselves out there. Now, I know it's going to sound unbelievable, but keep in mind that the slipstream will be in effect as far back as 2 seconds. So these cars will be able to climb up on top of each other pretty easily. And it'll be a lot of swapping back and forth, maybe a few mind games throughout the race. 10 seconds left, and Salgado still has not gridded up. He's pretty far up the order there, starting in 9th, and there he goes. I was going to say I would not want him to start from the pits here as the lights are up and the engines start to rev here for the first round of the season. And the green flag is out off the line. Doesn't look terribly good back there for, I think that is Ove Trangrade. He's getting swamped as other cars go around the outside, but he should be able to make some of those positions back up as they get up to speed. All the cars already up to 160.
Yeah, tremendous top-end speeds we're going to be seeing today. Right now, it's Dario Frattini leading over Togo Hisada, Nieva in third, Sanchez fourth, Olsen making up your top 5, but this is where the drafting game begins.
You can see them fanning out, trying to position themselves, figure out where they want to be here at the start of this race. But you got to get up onto that bank, and you can be a little bit below that yellow line. It is legal, but it's dangerous, and everybody quickly moves up to the higher side. Now they head for the jump for the first time. This is where it can get super scary.
Yeah, got to keep the car a little bit driver's right to be safe. And oh, looks like it was Jorge Nieva that had problems, but we're threatening to go 3 wide here on the first lap.
Up at the front, Togo Hisada still leads Frattini. Looking around the outside as Sanchez peeks his nose down to the inside, then decides to back out of it. Side by side between Olsen and Nieva for 4th position. Top 3 go single file.
And it's Togo Hisada that leads the group into the Lesmos for the first time as they jump through the chicanes. I think this is exactly where Togo wanted to be.
Indeed, and thankfully they managed to make it through what was the De La Rocha chicane, which is a much swifter kink now, but it's pretty single file through there, and somehow they all managed to get by. Meanwhile, looks like Hisada's not going to have it all his own way. Frattini finds enough of a run down into the Ascari chicane. Hisada slots in behind him.
I'm really impressed with the exit speed that Dario got coming out of those corners, and Togo said, you know what, no point in even fighting it right now. He let him right on by. I know that Togo is a very smart competitor, and especially last season, he really seemed to up his game. Seems like he's bringing a strategic approach here, even on lap 1.
And here we're really going to get to see what kind of slipstream these cars have on one another. It'll be all about trying to keep up with that lead pack, Joey. If you lose touch with that, then not likely you're going to be able to get the win, but you never know. We've seen some crazy finishes.
I think the one saving grace, though, is that you mentioned how powerful that slipstream is. You can feel it almost 2 seconds back with these Lotus 49 machines, and couple that with how much full throttle straightaway there is, you can kind of reel them back in, but you're right, you don't want to get too far back.
So John Olsen and Yeva should be able to get back up to the top 3. And behind them, it's about 7/10 to Ben Zoko. Ovi Trangrade looking like he's falling back. It's about 1.5 seconds. He's got to start hustling and catching up to those guys, or he could lose touch. And we might be down to all of 6 drivers in the lead pack here very early on, which if you're at the front, this front pack, that's probably what you want. A lot easier to deal with fewer cars out there. Look at him dance around coming off the jump, though.
It's so much fun to watch these cars, and it looks like you're going to see Xavier Sanchez move to the lead. It really seems like the first half of this lap, it kind of condenses with the huge draft battle, and now as we enter the normal part of Monza as we know it, they start to stretch out maybe just a little bit, and I say that as Zoko and Nieva are still too wide.
Still fighting for that 5th position, and they're going to go back to single file as they all weave their way through Della Rosa. Not seeing anybody with major wrecks yet, although a couple cars are slowing now. I'm not sure what's happening there. Regardless, it seems like everybody's paying attention here so that they can get, or at least try to get to the finish of this race before things get a little crazier.
I think I saw it was Terry Tromhauser with a little bit of an incident going through the gravel back there. But you're right, Joe. Given that we have 39 cars doing this Monza combined, I'm surprised we haven't had wheels tangle.
Oof, big moment for Bjorn Ackerman, who's trying very hard to keep up with the front group. Had a huge slide coming into the Ascari chicane. Trangrade has caught them, by the way. You could see him back there in the orange number 3 machine. So he's pulled up that gap. Is down to the inside. There goes Zoko, taking a little bit of a peek on Togo Hisada. He's fallen from the pole down to 4th, but keep in mind, you really don't have to be too concerned if you lose that many positions. As long as you're with that front group, you're okay.
You're going to have a perfect example of it right here. Right on board with Ben Zoko as John Olsen puts down the fastest lap. It kind of gets traded around by whoever's in the draft, but coming through the banked turn here, you're going to see Ben Zoko start to close it up. However, you can't really go too wide through here. It's all going to be about the timing going down this next straightaway, but being about 5th or 6th in line, look at the closing rate.
Oh, we've had our first accident, and Robert Abroda, I think, was involved in it. Unfortunately, found himself being plunged across the barrier that separates the front stretch from what is the exit of the oval. Robert Plumley, I'm also seeing involved in that one. We'll try to take a look at it in a little bit. Meanwhile, Ben Zoko getting a nice little toe coming off the oval jump, and then they all fan out once again. This is not a very wide track. You can only maybe fit about 3 wide through here.
See a little bit of a defensive move coming from these cars up at the front of the pack here as Ben Zoko is trying to make it too wide, and here we go, too wide through one of the trickier areas. I'm seeing 150 miles an hour as the tires are screaming for grip.
Then down into the Della Rosa, Hisada was taking a little bit of a look on Olsen, who at one point was trying for the lead there on Frattini, but had to back out of it. Now as they head through the Lesmos, it's your order is Frattini, Sanchez, Olsen, Hisada, and Zoko, your top 5.
I'm looking at timing and scoring, Joe. We got to go all the way back to 14th to find a gap. This is a battle that goes first through 13 cars. Look at the train.
Wow, yeah, this is going to be swapping around quite a bit. Question is who can put themselves in the position that they need to be in come the last 2 laps. That'll really decide it as we check out the last in this line. Matthew Maudsley right now in 13th. That's Gary Ho in front of us, and David Rossi in there as well in the number 15.
It's just incredible. I mean, you ride on board here with Maudsley, and it seems like it's just a forever train to get up there, but he is part of the front group It almost seems like it's Talladega back here in a big draft pack.
I mean, it is very Talladega-esque. The top 13 are 5 seconds, less than 5 seconds apart from each other. It's not as tightly packed as Talladega, but certainly it is just as scary as we come onto the oval once again. Back up with our leaders now. It looks like the top 4 breaking away a little bit, but not enough, I think, to truly get rid and shake the pack behind them. There's a move from Sanchez, who's going to take the lead away from Frattini down to the inside, slots in front, and Frattini doesn't fight it. He knows the game here.
A little bit of the accordion effect. It stretches out, but then when the straightaways come up, it condenses back with the draft effect, and it was 4 cars that had pulled away, but now it's 6, 7, and now it's starting to pile back up to 8, 9, 10 cars as we once again fan out 2 wide down the straightaway. Hey, we have yet to see any 3 wide. I've been pretty impressed. They've been well-mannered, dare I say.
Yep, like I said, most of these drivers up at the front have been a part of this league for some time, so they kind of understand how this all works and know that there's no point in trying to make some silly moves here. Although Ben Zocco has been feeling a little frisky, I've noticed. He's been poking his nose here and there quite a bit.
I've become
Whoa!
Problems. I believe that was David Rossi as well as Glenn Becker involved in it.
Oh, no. Rossi is able to tow out in time. But, yeah, Becker there sent spinning around. And, yeah, that was Maudsley as well, just getting a huge chunk, not anticipating the slowdown between them, both of them slamming into the Tech Pro barrier, and no place to go there for Maudsley at the back of it.
Yeah, we catch these replays here riding on board with David Rossi. Just way too much entry speed going through this. It just looks like he might have missed his mark a little bit, and then as he bounces back onto the track, he tries to get it reset, but unfortunately, Maudsley was already there.
Well, that narrows down some of that front pack now, and we have our first break more than 2 seconds from 10th to 11th at this point. Might be the top 10 now up at the front here as we follow Hisada, who's down to 5th. Ben Zocco manages to get by him. Nieva in behind that. Bjorn Ackerman then in behind there. But up at the front, it is Frattini leading Sanchez, leading Olsen. Currently, we're only on lap 5. We're a third of the way through the race.
What I'm noticing right now is Togo Hisada. Remember, he was our pole sitter. He's kind of hanging out there in 5th place. Ever since he got passed for the lead, he's been totally content to hang out inside the top 5. I haven't really seen him fight for any clean air or lead positioning yet.
Whoa! And now he's got to try and watch out for a big accident here on the oval. And I think that was John Olsen, as well as Ben Zocco, it looks like, involved in that one. Not sure if they had any sort of damage on those cars. That's the other thing you have to be concerned with the speeds they have here. If you get any sort of nose damage, your top-end speed is going to suffer greatly. Zocco just tangles wheels with Olsen, it looks like.
It's really tough to go too wide through the banking here, and I think Ben Zocco was maybe expecting just a little bit more room from John Olsen, but I don't blame either one of them. You got to keep it on the racetrack at some point.
And now they start trickling down one by one. The flies are dropping. Who is going to be left come the last lap or so? Nieva up to 4th. Hisada promoted back up to P3. Sanchez 2nd, and Frattini is in the lead, as Bjorn Ackerman has now overtaken Ove Trangerade, but Ove is going to get it right back.
Ove, one of the smarter competitors in our series. I think he saw Bjorn had some speed, but unfortunately Ackerman, with a little bit of a mistake, cost him quite a bit of track position. But I think will stay in this draft pack right behind Gary Ho.
Yeah, I think he's still plenty close enough. It's been whittled down to 8 left in the top group. Bjorn Ackerman has fallen back down to the back of it as we're taking a look at some of the cars behind there with Jason Clapper fighting with Jonathan Jordan. This is Clapper our biggest mover?
Not yet. No?
No? Oh, wow. Mosquera up 20. Interesting.
I was just going to make a point on it that usually our biggest mover, Jason Clapper, starting at the back, has some company. Javier Mosquera up 20 positions, and actually right on the back of Steve Maurice right in front of him. So I don't think the charge is over for Javier yet.
We've certainly lost quite a few cars, though, at this point. I see only 25 still out on the track of our 39 starters. So it's starting to gobble them up a little bit here and there as we are on lap 6. And it looks like Nieva is going to take a run up at the front of the group, going from, I think, 4th to not quite the lead. He slots back in 2nd.
You mentioned some of the attrition and a few of the big names that I'm seeing, Joe. Robert Plumley, our F2 champion from last season, has been taken out of this one earlier on, as well as some regulars, David Rossi, Glenn Becker, John Olsen, Ben Zocco that we've covered. You're right, quite a few attrition rate out here at Monza.
Nieva now is going to be able to get up to the lead ahead of Frattini down the front stretch. Oh, almost contact between them. I think they got away with it, and that is rare when it's wheel-to-wheel contact like that. They tend to jump over each other, and somehow they carry on. So your top 4 trying to pull away from the rest of the group, but Ove Trangarade is keeping them honest. I wonder if Ove is now just trying to keep a little bit of a buffer between them because of some of the accidents we've been seeing.
I don't blame him, especially since we're not even, I guess, approaching halfway through. He's seen some accidents. He's a very smart, savvy racer. I think that he's in a good position. And one thing that I have noticed is that Dario Frattini, he wants the clean air. He's been battling 1st, 2nd the entire time. So if you're going to go up and try to lead this race, you're going to... Oh, problems with Nieva.
This is going to be a big slowdown penalty. The question is, how much is he going to have to serve? Looks like he's gotten rid of it already, and he's still with the group. Okay, so he didn't lose out too badly. He's going to have to push to get back forwards here, and he can't make that mistake again, I dare say.
The one saving grace is how big this front draft pack is. He was able to slot back in, and you're right, he was able to get rid of that slowdown quite efficiently, so hey, props to you.
Yeah, right now it's looking like the top 7 because Bjorn Ackerman looks like he is struggling. I'm not sure if he's dealing with some sort of damage, but he's about 2.5 seconds back now. So yeah, he's out of the slipstream. There he is, all on his lonesome. And that can be frustrating because there really is not much you can do from this stage. If you're him, you just have to hope that the leaders start to fight a little too much.
It can be a little bit of a lonely race out there, like you're swimming across the ocean trying to find Nemo, but like Dory says, you just got to keep swimming.
Well, right now, it's, not going to be much to keep him company out here because we're only halfway through the race, and Frattini still leads at the front group with Sanchez, Hisada, Trangarade, Nieva, Salgado, and Ho, your top 7 all together. A little bit of a leap there for Bjorn Ackerman as he comes off the jump. Trangarade's going to take the lead away from Frattini up at the front as we ride on board with Dario, and he's got 2 going by. That's Sanchez as well.
Wasn't it just half a lap ago that we were talking about how Ove was in a great spot hanging out in the top 5, being very smart? Well, looks like he wants to go out and lead this one, Joe.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think he's had enough of watching them all mess around too much there. So he has jumped up to the front group. Interestingly, all the cars behind them have all kind of separated. They're not in groups until you get to 11th. It's Mosquera, Jason Clapper, Steve Morris, and Andrew Ang that are in a pack of 4. And that is going to be the fight for 11th place there in that back group. You can see them now coming into the first of the Lesmos, being led by Mosquera, who's definitely slipping and sliding a bit there.
It looks like Jason Clapper is going to potentially get around Mosquera, and that'll move him up to be the biggest mover. And here we go, driver's right. Mosquera actually lifts off the throttle, lets Jason Clapper by, and kind of wants to say, I want the draft a little bit.
I have to remember that it's very hot temperatures today, and it's only gotten worse. It's 112 Fahrenheit. So any of these drivers that are spinning up the tires probably suffering, because I can't imagine it's going to be easy to get them cooled down until you get to that oval potential. And even then, I wonder if the corners still heat them up quite a bit.
It's a great point, and especially here in the sim, I know that if you abuse the tires, it can take a very long time to get them back. So even if Javier Mosquera even just abused it for 1 or 2 turns, he can just be starting to get them back into their range. And One thing's for sure, though, the slipstream extremely powerful. We will have our race for the biggest mover between these two.
Indeed, as we come back to our leaders now on the backstretch of the oval, Trangarade back up to the point once again over Sanchez and Frattini holding back in third. Togo Hisada, what has he been doing back there? Is he waiting patiently for the end of the race to really pounce? Is he letting everything unfold in front of him? Or is this the most he has? From what I know of Togo, honestly, I think he's lying in wait.
We're going to go 3 wide. Trangrade, Sanchez, Frattini up through the middle. Dario back to the point. That was the moment that I've been waiting for. They've been well-mannered, calm, but first 3 wide for our leaders.
Frattini is the one that snatches that away up to the top spot. Like you said, seems to like that clean air and wants to be out of everybody's way. That's never a guarantee, especially as easily as everybody seems to be able to get that position right back. So will this be a dangerous game that he's playing in the end as they come into the Lesmos themselves and the group snakes in behind? Bit of a gap down to Nieva now, but he's going to be able to pull them back in. And then Gary Ho at the very back of this sits in 7th, watching it all at the tail of the train. Could he be a spoiler as well? In fact, I don't know if we've ever had a win from Gary Ho. I'll have to check that stat.
He's hanging on back there right in this lead draft pack, kind of the caboose on the train. And certainly anything can still happen, just like we're seeing some flickering out of our second place runner, Zabi or Sanchez. But one thing I've noticed about Dario here is he is still leading. He likes the clean air, but he's postured himself as such, meaning kind of like he's the kid on the playground that has dominated the slide or the monkey bars. Those are his, and you're going to have to go knock them off if you want it.
I love that comparison. By the way, Gary Ho has a single podium, never a win. So he is up amongst the, flying amongst the big boys here. Going to see if he can do anything now that he has the opportunity. This is going to be one of the best chances, as this race often throws up some wild winners and then some unusual results. As you can see up in front, those are the leaders still battling a little bit side by side. Sanchez over Frattini, and Trangarade using his momentum well as he darts down to the inside off of the oval, and I think he's going to take the lead now.
Nieva thought about going all the way up to second place, but saw the banking coming up, decides to zipper into third. And I've been watching the cars as they enter the banking, and we saw Ben Zocco and I believe it was Olsen come together earlier. If they enter down low, Joe, they really tend to slide up into the middle of the racetrack, something you got to watch out for.
Yeah, it's so steeply banked. You wouldn't think that the cars lose that much, but yeah, there's no downforce, and they are so lightning fast. We're talking 200 plus miles an hour heading into there that even those old tires cannot keep them glued to the track, and they are just sliding across back and forth. You're going to see that here, especially as they go through at 140 miles an hour down through the Della Rosia chicane, or kink in this case, and into the Lesmo once again. Still your top 7. Nothing is pulling them apart at this stage.
I love it. I mean, 9 laps into this race and a huge wiggle out of Trangrade as he exits the Lesmos here. And I mentioned Dario, kind of the big kid at the playground. Well, Togo Hisada has just been hanging out. He's just kind of been in the corner back there watching all along. Don't forget about Togo. He carries quite a big stick.
Also, I want to give a little love to Timothy Vandenberg. Started from pit lane and is up to 16th now. So qualified 21st, decided he did not want to be amongst the melee at the start, and has been slowly picking his way forward. But unfortunately, he's got 20 seconds to make up the Jordan, so I don't think he's going to be able to catch unless some drivers in front of him have a wreck.
Now, we always talk about the biggest mover, but that's based off of qualifying. Since he started in pit lane, it still shows where he qualified. I wonder what that math is, Joe.
If it was 39th to 16th, that would be 23, I believe.
He's ahead of both Clapper and Mascara in terms of our biggest mover so far.
Yeah, been doing a fantastic job on this one. Now, what about these guys here? They're coming onto the backstretch once again of the oval, and Ove Trangrade really likes this move. And I have to say, I think he's kind of perfected it. He waits on the exit of the first two corners there in the oval, shoots down to the bottom and slipstreams up the front. The only thing I don't like about this, Joey, is now he's completely vulnerable on the run down out of the oval.
There's two ways you could look at it, is that he's being predictable. He's showing the same move every time, and therefore, as a competitor, you kind of expect what to see, and then at the end of the race, you can pull something out that's different and surprise everybody. But it's kind of standard for the course here, 2x2, looking like pace laps, but at 200 miles an hour.
206 is what they reached there at the end of the straightaway. Ove Trangrade can't hold on around the outside as Sanchez is going to pull back in front, and Frattini will as well into second place. Now they slide into the Lesmos. We are 2/3 through the way in this race here, and this is only the first race of the season. This will help set the tone, even though it is an unusual track. There's not much else like it here in the Grand Prix Legends Series, but having that mental momentum is going to be key for drivers. Top 7 still sticking together. It's Sanchez, Frattini, Trangrade, Nieva, Hisada, Salgado, and Ho.
Oh, so close between Sanchez and Frattini going into Ascari there. Dario really late on the brakes. And Joe, if you want to get analytical, you were talking about Ove and having that clean air at the wrong part of the racetrack. Well, look at this. It puts him 3rd place in a pretty good draft spot going down into the Parabolica to potentially make a move into one of the last corners of the lap.
That's going to be hard. That's one of the shorter straights, weirdly enough. So I don't know if he'll be able to maybe try and sling by them, especially because watch the finish line here, right there. So it comes early on the straightaway. So you can't really drag race someone to it unless you're already side by side. So I don't know. If I was him, I'd want to be ahead of people really before Curva Grande, because after Curva Grande, you just don't have enough long straightaways.
Well, and here we go. Deja vu, look at him. He's making his move that you called last lap. Up, out, down, low, and he's going to go straight to the point. And just like last lap, a repeating move.
Sanchez lets him have it. Frattini doesn't fight it either, and that moves him up to the front. So what does he know that we don't know? Is he going to try and maybe use that off of turn 4 instead here, off the oval? Or is he going to pull something else that we haven't seen yet? He's been racing this many years at this point. As this, like I said, has been a staple. Ooh, into the wall a little bit there, and into him. Togo Hisada is going to run into somebody else. I didn't see who that was.
Frattini.
Oh, 2 of our major players. Frattini's on his lid. He is out of it, and Hisada is slow. Surely the car is majorly damaged, and he's out of the draft, so it's down to 5 now.
You're catching the replay here, and Dario makes a move to driver's right to try to squeeze 3 wide. You're going to see contact with the wall, and I believe some netcode ghost contact between Togo and Dario here.
Yep, absolutely. He gave him as much space as he could. There's only so much room, and he didn't want to lift, but it bit him in the end, and Hisada has had another incident, so his car definitely way too damaged. I have to imagine he's going to have to take it into pit lane and try to get it repaired. A lot of other drivers have done so. Kurt Clapper, Matthew Maudsley, John Olsen, and Michael Grissinger have all taken repairs and got back out. So we're back up to actually 29, but it depends on if Hisada and Frattini will return if we have those 29 at the checkered flag or not. So now it's Sanchez, Trangrade, Nieva, Salgado, and Ho, your top 5.
I don't think Dario Frattini is going to be returning to this one unless his neck is made out of maybe like an Eibach spring. It took a pretty big impact.
Yeah. Well, it was a good run, and he certainly looked like he was going to be a fast driver, but it just was not meant to be on this one as our drivers head back into the oval once again. I love that camera angle. Really shows you how they shoot into that thing and just carry tremendous speed all the way through the woods.
Well, if one thing has worked out for Trangrade, it's eliminating some of the cars out of this draft pack. So this move that he's making, starting to look a little bit better, because instead of having to fend off 4 or 5 cars, he's only got to worry about a couple now behind him.
Checking to see how many of these drivers have actually won here and I don't believe Salgado has. Nieva, I don't think, has had a win. And Ho, of course, hasn't had a win. But Ove Trangrade and I believe Sanchez has. Yeah, Xavier Sanchez has 2 wins to his name. So we could potentially have a first-time winner here, depending on how it all shakes out. And it certainly is not finished by any stretch of the imagination, as they're going to go side by side once again with Ove around the outside of Sanchez, eventually having to give it up.
Gary Ho has lost touch with this battle just a little bit. I was hoping to see that purple helmet stick into the lead draft pack, but it's now Marco Antonio Salgado that is the 4th car in train now. Oh, we got problems there. That's Ove Trangrade off the racetrack, but gathers it back up. He'll be able to continue on. Still got a few laps left. Just got to climb back the track position.
Sanchez has got to be hoping desperately. He's got enough pace to try and drop these guys, but it's only 9/10 of a second. That's not going to be enough to leave them behind. If they can stay within that 1 second, they'll easily have him by the end of the oval.
And actually, this has brought back in Gary Ho. That little bit, he's now only about 1.3 seconds back. You mentioned the draft is powerful enough to see an almost 2 seconds, so this might bring the purple helmet back into contention.
As they come down into the Parabolica, we're going to get 3 laps to go this time by, so it is really coming down to it. And those 0.8 of a second, as far as they may seem right now, is going to start narrowing down, and Gary Ho especially has got to be loving this. I am within the slipstream. I could maybe pull them in. It depends on how well that group in front of them works together, because if they try and leapfrog each other, they could run away from Ho, and they're already up to 2 seconds ahead of him. There you go.
That's exactly what's happening, is that they are working kind of as a little miniature draft pack, spread out enough so they are actually gapping it out from Gary Ho right now. A little unfortunate. I think he's going through the magnets in his nose, trying to get the most powerful one out there.
Well, right now he's going to need just that little bit more to get up there. Sanchez caught up by Nieva, but Ove Trangrade hangs back a little bit, and Salgado does as well. They don't need to be right on the tail of him here as we jump off of the oval for Gary Ho, and just up in the distance you can see them going too wide. Nieva going to take that lead spot.
And actually, Xavier starting to crowd him a little bit in the middle of the racetrack. Sanchez going to stick to the lead with the defense around the outside. That's the corner we don't think about having to lift for, but in these cars, it is definitely a pucker moment.
Yeah, it is not flat out by any stretch of the imagination, especially without the chicane in there before it. So it's very tricky, but it is rewarding. I can tell you that. I love the feeling of it when you really get it right. But they come out of the Lesmos once again. Sanchez leading the way. And now they got to start thinking, coming up to 2 to go here soon, where do I actually want the car? Because being in the lead isn't necessarily going to be the best place.
Correct. Yeah, it's all about strategy. And think about Daytona or Talladega, how on TV they always say, well, I don't want to be leading on the last lap. I want to be in the draft position to take away that position. Same exact logic goes here.
Now, whether or not we'll see some blocks like they will sometimes do at Talladega, we have yet to see as they come into the Parabolica once again. It's down, I think, pretty officially now, just to 4 left, fighting for the win, with Sanchez, Nieva, Trangrade, and Salgado, the 2 to go, giving it the line.
And 2 laps to go, only inches separating Sanchez and Nieva up front. Looks like Jorge's going to decide to stay in the draft. I wonder if Ove Trangrade back there, he's close enough to pull that familiar move that we've seen quite a few times.
See, I think him holding back right here is intentional. I think he's leaving this 0.4 of a second gap because he's probably timed it out and knows he can slipstream by, and they can't really do a darn thing about it. As
he's
they're going
right now.
Yeah, they're swapping around. So he is positioning himself. The wrench in his gears, though, is Marco Salgado back there.
Absolutely, and you got to watch out. But here comes the big run from Ove. Does he lift on the straightaway this time? He's got the run, and now he lifts halfway down. So, Joe, you're right. He is purely being strategical about where he is placing his car.
Setting himself up. Just 2 to go. 1.5 really at this stage as they come down into the Curva Grande once again. But Sagato's been doing a lot of the same. He could spoil the party, take his first ever series win by our account. If we've got that wrong, let us know. But I could not find any stats that show that he's taken a broadcast win into the Grand Prix Legends Series, down into the first of the Lesmos, as this is going to be the second to last time they head through the road course section. You can make passes through here, but it's so much harder than trying to do it with the slipstream.
We saw Dario Frattini do it in one of the first laps by Togo Hisada. So yes, it is possible. And I know we are winding down, but I just want to give a shout out to both Mascara and Clapper again, because not only are they huge in terms of moving up through the field, but Joe, look, they're inside the top 10 now, 7th and 8th.
Wow. That's impressive stuff. Even for them, that is massive. Huge run up the order for them, just staying out of trouble. So there that you can see them coming down into the braking for Ascari. Not too far behind our leaders, honestly, about 20 seconds, really, behind the lead, considering they started way down the order. That's mighty impressive. But the white flag is out for Sanchez, Nieva, Trangarade, and Salgado. Here's where the games begin.
And look at that. Marco has actually dropped off the back of Trangarade a little bit, so Ove can purely focus forward. Ove already lifting right here, going through this first bank turn, letting Nieva and Sanchez just kind of scrap it out.
But Nieva has not tried to overtake Sanchez here. They're going to go by a lapped car. Here we go. He's got the run. Now he's going to try and make the move. Is this too soon? Or will he be able to hold on to it coming off the oval? He's up ahead now.
Joe, I'm going to be curious. Does the move come from Ove here? Coming out onto the straightaway. Look at the head of steam he's got. He's already over 200
he's too
miles
early.
an hour. I agree. He's too early.
Had to lift. That blunted his momentum. They're going to go 3 wide. I'm not sure how far this will work because it narrows down a little bit here. Comes down to 1 less lane. Somehow he's got a little bit ahead and he's got the inside. Coming into the Curva Grande. Can he finish the job? Sanchez ducks it in. Almost. That made contact. Sanchez is off. Through goes Nieva. Trangarade can't keep the speed up with the contact.
Just the slightest of touches between the two, and now it's Nieva up front. You got to wonder, does Ove have any damage? He's lost a little bit of pace to Jorge, but that promotes Marco Salgado into the podium position.
Gotta be kicking himself. If he had just been a little bit later, he would have blasted past them with no response from either driver. But now it is all Nieva's to lose. He's got a half-second gap back to Ove Trangarade, and we are coming down to the last 2 braking events of the lap, into Ascari and into Parabolica. Does he have enough to keep him behind? Down into Ascari. He's a little bit slidey. He's going to lose some time. He's got to be careful here.
He was a little bit too fast charging in, and that means Nieva got the better exit. All Jorge's got to do is go through the Parabolica one more time for the checkered flag.
Just enough to keep him out of range of Ove Trangarade as Jorge Nieva looking to add to his small tally of wins in this series. He comes out of Parabolica and he is going to take the win here at Monza for round 1 of the Grand Prix Legends Series.
Ove Trangarade, second place. Marco Antonio Lopez Salgado, your podium.
And let me double check on that. No, Nieva takes his first win, if I am seeing this correctly. His first ever series win. Former F2 champion. And I think he has finally broken that duck.
That is fantastic. Congratulations to Jorge Nieva. I mean, what a place to take your first win. Monza combined. Awesome.
It's his 4th ever podium. Took him a bit to do it, but I say he really earned that one, and what a battle to the finish. Timed it right, watched and waited, and when the opportunity came, he was there to pounce on it. As the last of the drivers come across the line, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews, so stick around. Welcome back to Monza. Round one of the Grand Prix Legends Series sees Jorge Nieva take his first ever broadcast win. Ove Trangrade came in second behind him, and Marco Salgado had to settle for third, but a nice podium, his first ever podium, actually. Xavier Sanchez, who was in the hunt for the win, unfortunately made a little bit of a mistake on the last lap, had a little contact, fell back to fourth. Gary Ho still gets himself a top five after starting in 14th. Bjorn Ackerman was sixth as Jason Clapper goes from 33rd to 7th. And then Paul Foster finishes 8th, Neil Kemp 9th, and Javier Mascara 32nd to 10th.
Then we have Andrew Eng, also another big mover, plus 14 for that number 27 car. B. Maurice in 12th position. Jonathan Jordan 13th, Jan Steffen in 14th, Terry Tromhauser with a nice top 15 finish. And we have Derek Matthews here in 16th. Dario Fertini actually did get back out onto the racetrack, so need to go talk to his chiropractor, see what he's got in terms of his regimen. Akira Shimitori in 18th, Eli Ornberg 19th, first car one lap down, and Robert Reynolds in 20th.
Oh, great finish there for Back Row Bob, as Don Stanford finished 21st, Pablo Paris 22nd. You get into the drivers that were many laps down now. Grissinger 23rd and Hisada 24th. Badarek 25th. He was a DNF. John Olson got back out there with a 26. And then from there on down, drivers pretty much all DNFs except for a few that managed to get them on track to limp it home. Unfortunately, out of our 39 starters. A bit of a shock here. We actually don't have anybody ready to talk to us. We'll give it a second. Maybe just wearing off a little bit for Jorge Nieva. We definitely want to talk to you, bud, if you're willing to come and chat with us. But that always makes me feel good to see someone finally get that, Joey, because I know I have a single win out of, and not just in broadcast races, but any of my Lotus 49 races. And that one meant the world to me when I finally was able to get that. So I'm sure Jorge Nieva is over the moon right now.
And it's something that we were talking about behind the scenes, and we were double checking, but you're right. Jorge Nieva claiming his first broadcast win here in the Lotus 49s. We were mentioning Marco Antonio Salgado as well. He has his first podium. So this Monza combined race threw some variables out there, and I just keep drawing the connections to Talladega. You see a lot of the players that aren't necessarily at the front grabbing these podiums and wins. They're up here and they have a shot at it.
Yep. It's so much less about the outright speed and more about how you use it and timing yourself. And I think some of the drivers definitely learned that one today. And a few certainly found themselves left licking their wounds, unfortunately, before all was said and done. But not seeing anybody showing up here, so not sure that we're going to get any interviews, unfortunately, for this one. But hopefully next week, which we'll talk about in a moment. A big thank you in the meantime to the Grand Prix Legends community, as well as a thanks to the team today, Rob, Joey, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our website, and our merchandise store. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. Next race will hopefully be a little less frantic. It'll be Mosport. It'll still be difficult, but it'll be June 17th. So next Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, June 24th, rather, I should say. Also, be sure to check out our other broadcasts that we have listed here, because up next today, Camel GT has their own challenge. The Nürburgring will be at 1 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, though, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.